One, and we are live with VotingandAction.org's BlogTV show. Take it away, Dax.
Alright, so this BlogTV is going to be about, not exclusively, but a major factor in it is going to be the RNC's railroading of the Ron Paul supporters away so that little Mitt Romney can get his hat into the Republican ring to go up against Obama. There's going to be talks of disenfranchisement upon the Ron Paul supporters, disenfranchisement, or not just disenfranchisement, but assaults on people who got into positions of power within the Republican Party, using police to dislocate one man's hip, trying to escort him out, even though he was a duly elected official, and basically telling anyone who elected delegates that were just brushed off by the Republican National Convention that their voice didn't matter. Oh god, I am pissed.
Yeah, that's a lot of piss to talk about, Dax.
Yes. Alright, did anyone want to open up with anything, or do you just want me to continue my
I think we've got something from Jared.
Wait, how did you know? Seriously, how did you know? Did you mind meld me or something?
No, your sigh was loud enough that it set off Skype and the little blue ring happened around you?
No, I didn't sigh.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I did?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I wasn't sighing at Dax. No.
It was a power sigh.
I agree with Dax. See, I don't know. I'm a little older and a little bit more... I've seen a little bit more in terms of, political maneuvering and bullshit. I don't know. Is the no swearing sign on? I don't know.
I think this week we're just going to have to let it fly because, people are going to start sounding like Eddie Murphy with what happened.
Oh, I'm just getting scared.
Yeah. Oh, I know. No. And see, I think you have every right to be upset. But I guess I'm a little bit more practical and pragmatic about it. Maybe it's because I'm just not shocked. I'm not shocked that this happened. I did raise a little bit of an eyebrow. That's all it really merited from me, though, was a little bit of a raised eyebrow about the disenfranchisement part. I understand them changing the rules for next time, but changing the rules of something that's already happened, that seems rather arbitrary, and that is basically, it's a big, fist up the butt. You were taking a fisting, is what it is, when it comes to that, and allowing that to happen. The way I see it, if you allow your rights to be violated, if you allow people to walk all over you, they are just more incentivized, or rather less disincentivized, if you understand what I'm saying, to do it again.
Basically, you deserve it because you're not standing up for yourself.
Right. They're going to do it again, and again, and again. But this, I think the thing that people need to realize is that this has been the enemy all along. The enemy will do anything that they can to stay in power. These are the so-called rich white, aristocrat, the wasps, that are trying desperately to stay in power. I mean, these are the people like that, that Aiken guy from Missouri. That it's like, old 60, 70-year-old guys that have no clue, that are not kind of with it with the world. These are the old guard that are desperately hanging on to their power. The thing that I look at with this whole thing is that I take solace in the fact that we did make a change. We as a group, libertarians, we're like kind of migratory birds, temporarily nested in the GOP and said, you guys need to make some changes. They courted us for a little while, then they realized just how powerful we could be, and it's like a dual-edged sword for them. They're like, we want your votes, we want your support, but holy crap, you're going to take over our whole party and come into power. No, we'll take your votes as long as you let us stay in power over all of this other stuff. And they saw that we actually did threaten them, which is a good thing. They are afraid. The only thing that justifies what they've done is fear. They are afraid of what we can bring to the table. And they're doing everything they can to prevent it. They're not forward-thinking. They are not long-term thinking. They're looking this election only, well, and the next one, but they're not thinking 30 years down the road. They don't understand just how much they're shooting themselves in the foot with this.
If I
No, that's okay. I'll be quick. I think I perhaps am a bit more cynical. I think they are long-term thinking because I think, well, they being the old Republican Guard, not some like, massive conspiracy theory. You're kind of they, just the old Republican Guard. I think that they understand that many Americans, if they're not libertarians, a lot of them are they're moderates, independents, etc., and don't trust either party. So I think what they're thinking about is maintaining their power. And you could say, yeah, they shot themselves in the foot, but the political system set up as it is, it's impossible to have a third-party candidate win anyway. So all they have to do is keep pulling bullshit like this, and we'll never get a libertarian in, ever.
Right. And, I mean, I know I have to address this, because I know there are some people out in the audience, all 8 of you, because I'm actually part of it. There are some of you who are under the impression, and I'm not saying it's fact, I'm not saying it's fiction, but some of you are under the impression that the bankers basically control everything. It doesn't matter because the president's already been picked, votes don't matter, blah, blah, blah. We're going to pretend it does, so please bear with us. They shot themselves in the foot with this one because there are, even just this election and the next election, I'm not seeing how any of this is going to go in the Republicans' favor. They've turned off a great deal of Ron Paul supporters. They've turned people like me away. I'm going libertarian. I'm not going to vote for Romney. I mean, like, everyone here knows I basically see them both as one and the same. So, and how many people are going to follow my lead and just say, nope, sorry, it looks like you got Obama. You just sealed a second term for Obama.
Well, I think to be able to measure how much of that third party vote that they lost, we're going to have to count up all of Gary Johnson's votes, plus all the people who write in Ron Paul's name, even after he wasn't nominated.
What about even the people who just don't vote?
It actually makes up half America, almost.
Well, more
I
than
mean,
half.
people
I believe about 10% vote now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I meant
That's the last statistic I heard.
I meant the people who would have voted otherwise, not the people who just don't vote, period.
That's going to be a hard determination.
I know, that's what I'm saying here, that it's impossible to tell just how many votes they've lost.
I'll be right back. You guys
But we can see at least Ron Paul write-ins plus Gary Johnson, and if that makes up the margin between Romney and Obama, and Romney loses, then he can see clearly where he lost the votes that he needed.
Well, hold up, though. At the same time, if the Republicans had gone more libertarian, they would have lost the religious right, because the religious right, at the end of the day, don't like libertarians either.
Yeah, who would they have lost the religious right to?
That gets into
Where exactly were they going to go? They're the furthest thing from
The religious right
centrist.
would have gone to the Constitution Party, or the Prohibition Party, or someone like that. Actually, to be fair, even the religious right in this country, I can't see them going to Jack Fuller.
I think they would have been stuck with what they got. I mean, they're stuck with what they got now. Do you think that they wanted Romney? No, they wanted Santorum.
Yeah. Okay, so they would have...
Harry.
What if they would have found some third-party candidate to vote for if they got Trudeau?
And actually, that brings up one of the major things for me. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't a lot of Republicans, the big mainstream media included, didn't they say that Romney would be the worst pick for this? I mean, Santorum said it, Gingrich said it, I think Perry may have said it, I think Hannity said it.
Well,
and now suddenly he's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
When all
have to do it that way.
Yeah, when
they
all
just want to beat Obama now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, it's the same thing every year. You vote for the guy you dislike the least, and the party rally behind whatever the candidate is after the fact.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I can understand that kind of mindset of let's just hold our noses and go for the lesser of two evils. But at what point do we stop and say, "Hey, evil is evil. Maybe we should take a step back from it because it's not leading us anywhere good."
Well,
And
that's why.
some of us are libertarians.
Well, I'm a libertarian, but the whole lesser of two evils thing, I think that's actually a false analogy sort of thing. The lesser of two evils implies that both are evil, when that's not necessarily the case. Now, just my own personal experience with watching or observing political stuff. People are talking about like, oh, Romney, authored the thing that became Obamacare, in his Massachusetts thing, and yeah, that's true, but people really just strip all of the context out of everything when it comes to stuff like that. They also point to like Paul Ryan, how he voted for this and voted for that, and this is his voting record, and blah 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 blah. The problem is up-and-comers, especially people like Paul Ryan, who was just another congressman. He wasn't important in any way. He was actually more junior than a lot of people like Boehner. I mean, Boehner, the only reason he's the freaking in 2010 when we had that sweep, when the Republicans had that sweep of Congress and kicked out Pelosi as the majority leader and everyone, it was Boehner's turn. And this is the problem in the GOP. They're lined up, ready to take their new spots in the pecking order. When people they rotate out, the new people come up through the ranks and everything, and so we end up with this John Boehner and a new majority whip, and all these other people in positions of authority in the GOP, and in order to get along, like O'Ryan had to vote against his conscience, maybe. You can't go back and look at 2 years ago, and you can't go back to when Romney was governor and see what he did there. Massachusetts is one of the bluest states in the nation. And, so he had to work with a bunch of Democrats there, and then people to completely forget the context of, Romney Care in Massachusetts was not unconstitutional. It was a state issue, and states have the right to do what they want to do if it's not, against the federal constitution. But Obamacare is unconstitutional. I don't care what Justice Roberts says. It is unconstitutional, and, because it's a different context, and people just wash it all out. So.
Yeah, can I address your point about going along to get along? I mean, one thing about Ron Paul that libertarians admire is that he is Dr. No. He hasn't gone along to get along. So, I mean, I take your point.
They got him snubbed.
They got 30 years in Congress.
Well, true, that too. But it got him snubbed at the, and so he basically, I understand he didn't compromise his principles, and that's very, very admirable. And I mean, that's more admirable than a lot of these people, in Congress that compromise their principles just to get along. And when they compromise, they end up becoming corrupt. I understand that, but it also caused him, this is one of the reasons why I think he really had Rand compromised, endorsing Romney and everything. He's setting the stage for Rand to take a position of authority in the GOP as kind of a stealth libertarian, going through the ranks there to not make the same mistakes that Ron Paul made coming up through the ranks by being so contrary all the time. So I don't know. I think I see what they're doing, and I don't begrudge Rand what he did.
You said mistake.
What's your opinion?
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, by the way, what's your opinion of Jack Fuller?
Who?
The Prohibition Party's candidate for president.
Jack who? I have
Jack Fuller.
Never heard
says that he says his campaign platform is based on the 1611 authorized King James Bible.
Yeah. No. No. Sorry. No.
What do you think I think of that guy? Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
and like I said, he's the Prohibition Party, so he wants to make alcohol, abortion, and pornography illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done listening.
Yeah.
We're done listening to this.
Yeah. It's like, okay, a room full of libertarians. We oppose drug prohibition. Prohibition does not work, okay? So what?
We'll save
So what do you think we think of the Prohibition Party candidates?
We'll save this for like a comedy hour or something.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
All right, so
So wait, will we have a comedy hour in this conversation?
We'll consider it. We'll consider like a 5-minute comedy, like 5-minute thing. But
Yeah,
I didn't know we were going to be talking about Biden.
yeah, if we go comedy hour,
Who?
I'm gonna read his Wikipedia page out loud. That's be sufficient.
Okay, well, we can hold off on that for later if you don't mind. All right, so back to what I was saying. You said it was a mistake to hold true to your principles, which is what has garnered Ron Paul as one of the greatest inspirations in the arena of politics today.
I didn't say that.
You said you didn't make Durand didn't make the same mistakes that Ron made.
Right, and I didn't say that Ron made mistakes. I didn't say that Ron's mistake was holding to his principles. Ron made mistakes in likability. He didn't. I don't think he really made friends. He didn't. It's one of those kinds of things. You can either say, "Oh no, I don't want to vote with you because I don't believe in that," or you can say, pat him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I would really love to help you out, but I just can't," And there's a difference in tactics and the way you approach people. And I think Ron just didn't have the likability in the party where when he's saying no to his leadership in the party and saying, "I'm not going to vote with you guys because he was pissing people off that he was saying no, rather than saying no amicably and nicely and, really explaining, "I just can't do it. I can't, I gotta vote my conscience." That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It almost like there's a way you can approach it and a way you can phrase it it's almost like you're embarrassed to have to tell them no, but man, I'd love to help you guys out, but my principles demand that I stick with this, stick with my principles, and this is what got me elected, so that kind of thing. Apologizing almost for saying no, not apologizing for what you believe, but apologizing for not being able to go along and get along. And I think that's what where Rand Paul is really stronger than his dad. He's a lot more amicable. He's a lot more nice. He's a lot more willing to kind of smile and nod with people and say, "Okay, well, I see you have a different point of view than me." Well, Ron's like, "No, that's not right." He just flat out. So it's a tact thing. It's not a strategy thing. It's not a principles thing. It's a tact thing. And Ron Paul just doesn't have the tact with these other power mongers,
So what I'm getting from the there's a Facebook group where all the Ron Paul delegates from Colorado, they all join this Facebook group, and it's secret. And I'm one of those delegates that was allowed in this Facebook group. Todd King, who is down there at the RNC, said 2 hours ago, he said on Facebook, "As punishment for last night's rebellion, buses took almost 3 hours to make the 25-minute drive to the event center. This left almost no audience for the Ron Paul tribute video and Rand Paul speech." And it's very obvious that the RNC organizers know, which buses are for which state, and they are actually targeting the Ron Paul states to give them the slower bus schedule.
Now, see, that's just vindictive, and that's just burning bridges.
Now, I have
for
to
it.
say though, if you can prove it in a court of law, then you could put forward some sort of lawsuit, I think.
I'm pretty sure I'll get killed right now.
Well, it's a political party. No one has a right to, equal voice in a political party.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the government. It's the step before the government.
It's a private organization.
Right, yeah, that's true. So a private-run organization gets to do whatever dumb thing that it wants, essentially.
Yeah, and this is where I take the greatest beef. Everyone, and I have been called on this. I mean, I made a YouTube video about it, and I'm already getting a whole bunch of crap for it. They're saying people like me are splitting the vote for voting my conscience and voting what I think my vote should go to. Yet a lot of people are just voting against Obama. Anyone but Obama. Anyone but Obama.
ABO.
ABO. So who's really splitting the vote here? somebody going with Romney who's just going with him because he's not Obama, or me who is over here voting his conscience.
Right. I rather think that's transferring responsibility. I mean, the two-party system as it is sucks. The candidates suck. So it's like saying, if I don't want to vote for somebody that I think sucks, I'm splitting the vote. I'm giving Obama another term. I'm making the best of bad choices.
Well, hold on.
I see the Libertarian candidate is probably actually a decent choice, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, here's my issue with that mindset, though. No two people on this planet have the same opinion about everything. So, are you going to not only vote for candidates who agree with you 100% of the time? If so, then every person in the country should run all by themselves and just vote for themselves.
Oh, I don't agree with Ron Paul 100% of the time. Now, I gotta say though, Ron Paul, well, now, with marriage is, by law, technically a state matter. Okay, Ron Paul, in his private life, in his personal beliefs, he doesn't think that two consenting adults of the same sex get to draw up a marriage contract. I disagree with that. However, if a state wants to make gay marriage perfectly legal, then Ron Paul will sit on his hands and say, okay, states' rights. You know, but if, well, my creotard, fucktard state of Georgia, we have creationists in our legislature, they want to say gay people can't get married here, and they have. Ron Paul will sit on his hands, and again, by law, that's the way it is by law, and Ron Paul will say, okay, I can't do anything there. So, my point is, he and I don't agree on everything, but at least he has the good sense to, for all intents and purposes, stay off my lawn and keep his religion out of my life.
Yeah, this is one of the things that really pisses me off about the Republicans.
I have a question here. How often what percentage of the time would a candidate need to agree with you in order for you to consider them a good candidate?
Oh, that just depends on the issues. I mean, because somebody could agree with me on an issue like abortion. I think the possibility of Roe v. Wade being overturned is slim to none right now. Now, you could certainly argue that, oh, well, the president can appoint judges, and if we have a string of very staunchly socially conservative Republicans, and a whole bunch of judges would be overturned. You could argue that it's not likely going to happen. So abortion isn't one of my issues. So if someone disagrees with me on abortion, then it's not going to be, it's not.
Let's not make a break for you.
As much at all as say somebody like Ron Paul said, who believes marijuana should be legal.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I think this is what I was trying to say when Azazel chimed in, and it actually has to do with things like abortion. The religious right really pissed me off because they are so, like, single issue. It's like, you know, if he's anti-abortion, or, you know, or if he's pro-abortion, I'm never voting for him. You know what? Grow the fuck up and realize that abortion rights are never going away in this country. Never going away. And you know what? The country it's going down the tubes and going down the shitter because we keep on having big status people spending all this money. We are facing a fiscal cliff that when we fall off the cliff, these freaking retards are going to be like, but abortion, shut the fuck up. We're falling off a cliff, you idiots. You know, just shut up about abortion. You're killing our country. Our country is dying, and you're worried about the nail polish on your fingernails. It's like we're being stabbed in the heart, and you're worried about what clothes you're gonna wear tomorrow. What the fuck's wrong with you? You know, that's my opinion on it. It's just like, stop talking about the stupid religious social issues. We have to right the ship on the fiscal side before we talk about anything. It's like freaking talking about the curtains in a burning down house.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, I've got something going back to the grooming of Rand Paul. In that same Facebook delegates group, a delegate named Vicky, she says, after what happened yesterday, if Rand doesn't address this the way the RNC needs to be a strong principled party and needs to drop those new rules, that will say a lot about how he will operate in the future, in my book. So
I agree. He's a stand for his dad.
Yeah, and he had a speaking spot, right? And having not brought up all of the horrible things that happened to disenfranchise those delegates, especially Maine not even being seated, which that would have been another state for Ron Paul, which would have had him just one state shy of their rule change number of 8. Because he had 6, Maine would have been 7, and if one more state would have flipped, that would have been enough to even meet the 8 rule. So,
right.
I thought it was 5 because I thought they had validated that he was on the ballot, but he just
No. What happened was, he was going to get 6. They knew he was going to get 6. The rule was 5, but before they started the whole nomination process, they had a rules meeting at the RNC with not all of the people there and delaying the buses of Ron Paul supporters. And they passed new rules stating that you now need 8 people in order to be nominated on the floor. You need 8 states to get nominated on the floor. So they moved the goalpost because they saw that he was about to make it. Primarily because if you get nominated on the floor, you get to speak.
Oh, they offered him a chance to speak. They just, heavily censored him. And he said...
Well, they didn't censor him. They told him he would have to have all of his stuff vetted first, And he's like, man, that's not censorship. That's like pre-censorship, I guess you could say. Like, we're going to make sure you say only approved things.
I call that censorship.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's like a kinder, gentler form of censorship, I guess.
It's a distinction without a difference, really, I guess.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I kind of wish we could do would be like, just take out the current 2 parties, and if we're only going to have 2 parties, just let them be socialist and libertarian. So at least we have people who have consistent positions and aren't like massive hypocrites. And so we have one party looking out for our welfare, one party looking out for our liberty. That would make me happy.
Instead of
what a lot of people don't know about is the progressive movement that started back with like in the 1910s, 19aughts. The progressive movement itself kind of merged with the cultural Marxist movement of that came over here between World War I and World War II. Actually, right at the beginning of World War II. The Frankfurt School of Cultural Marxism came over here and established itself and latched into the progressive movement. And the progressives, they launched critical theory, which is quite literally criticize everything but offer no alternatives. Destroy capitalist culture by criticizing everything and separating people into groups. This is what the progressives are. They are cultural Marxists, and their whole strategy was to infiltrate both major political parties. So it's like, if you don't want the cultural Marxist with the D after his name, you get the cultural Marxist with the R after his name. That's the problem. We need to kick out the cultural Marxists out of the Republican Party.
Forgive my ignorance. Could you please give me a definition of what you mean by cultural Marxism?
Cultural Marxism was, well, it's not really a definable term. It's a history thing. You have to understand the history of Marxism. Marxism was thought to be a science. The science of Marxism stated that when the proletariat got fed up with the bourgeoisie and got fed up with the capitalists, running everything and having all of the wealth and the power, they would take up arms and rise up in an armed revolution against them. what happened was World War I came along, and the Marxists were like, yes, this is the sign. This is when our theory or our science, our factual, fact-based science will come true.
Watch Jared, I'm going to have to ask you to raise your voice because moderator says they can't hear you on BlogTV.
Oh, well, I can't really do much. I have people sleeping. Hold on.
Hear me now.
Am I okay now?
Ipsos?
Can you hear me okay? Anyway, the cultural, or the Marxists, the economic Marxists of World War I were watching for what they knew to be true. I mean, they were so convinced of their science that they knew it was going to happen, but what ended up happening was the proletariat, the poor, took up arms for their countries and fought for their countries instead of against the bourgeoisie. And they're like, this isn't supposed to happen. This wasn't, how it was supposed to be. And what they realized was that the poor people in capitalist societies didn't really realize just how oppressed they were because they were enticed by all of the wealth generated by capitalism, which is hilariously ironic.
Yeah, really.
And they just
they don't know how bad they got it because they like how good they got it. Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, exactly. And so they're like, well, if we're going to destroy capitalism, see, destroying capitalism is the end in and of itself. It does not need to be justified. Capitalism just is bad, according to the Marxists of the early 20th century. They're like, we have to destroy capitalism because it's bad, okay? And why is it bad? Because it's bad, okay? It's just because it's bad. Anyway.
They use the word exploitation all the time.
Yes, they were being exploited.
Exploiting the working class so that the higher-ups can get theirs, yes.
Yeah. Well, and it's, of course, it's just ridiculously stupid because they forget to factor in the fact that the person taking the profit as the excess wages as profit, well, they are paying themselves for their own labor as well. They completely forget that the so-called capitalists that are running things are doing labor as well. They are part of the labor pool in organizing and allocating resources appropriately. They are laborers as well. So anyway, but here's what happened. Right between World War I and World War II, they established a think tank in Frankfurt, Germany, in the Frankfurt University, and it was called, quite literally, the Frankfurt School. And this think tank had a bunch of Marxist, quote-unquote, air quotes here, scholars, trying to figure out how to destroy capitalism, and they realized that they were approaching it all wrong. They were approaching it as an economics thing rather than approaching it as a cultural thing. So they decided to think about ways to destroy capitalism from within itself via the culture rather than via economics.
Oh, okay.
So
I see what you mean now.
Right. So cultural Marxism is essentially, it's founded on two fundamental principles. One is critical theory, and the other one is political correctness. Critical theory says we are going to criticize everything that doesn't agree with us. We are going to be critical of everything, literally. And this is where feminism came from, believe it or not. This is where women's suffrage came from, believe it or not. This is where, like, the race card comes from. It's like, America must be evil. It has to be evil. It's the most evil place in the world because we had slavery. You can't point out how there was slavery all around the rest of the world. No, we are the only place, according to cultural Marxists. Every other place that had slavery where blacks were enslaving other blacks, they weren't racist, they weren't bad, they weren't evil. They were culturally motivated, and that was just fine.
What's really hilarious here is that this is completely different from the way that I've heard cultural Marxism explained in the past, which makes me think a lot of the people I've heard ranting about it didn't understand it.
Yeah, well, they don't know their history.
I've always had it explained as just the idea that all cultures are equally good.
Well, it's not so much that. All cultures must be equally good, except for American culture, which is universally bad. That's the key to it.
Sorry to interrupt this, guys, but the topic was the RNC and the Republicans.
You're right.
Yeah. So there's been your cultural Marxism
lecture.
lecture.
Which I appreciate. Thank you very much for clearing that up. Because, yeah, I mean, usually when people say cultural Marxism, it's like they're using buzzwords. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's what you did. No,
well,
not at all.
I'm describing what it actually is. But I've seen the enemy, and it is them. The cultural Marxists are the enemy. They are the founders of the progressive movement. And they've infiltrated both parties, and that's what we need to do. That's one of the reasons why I think it's very important to continue to try and push towards being a part of the Republican Party and not just break ranks, because that's the only way to affect change in a two-party system. The parties will not go away, and they will secure their power however they can. We need to become part of that inner circle, part of that inner sanctum, part of those rules committees. We need to, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to be, you can say it's compromising our principles, but I say it's acting stealthily and being strategic.
Yeah, but then by that
it's
point...
sort of like the religious right started infiltrating in the 70s and kept infiltrating, and now we have the situation we have now with all the social conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
So,
the problem with our enemies is they have no scruples. So
right.
They'll infiltrate and they'll lie and they'll cheat and everything. So you have to be kind of be good at their game too. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. So, what you're saying basically is we have to compromise our own principles. But then again, doesn't that more or less make us open targets for infiltration by the cultural Marxists?
No, we're not compromising our principles. We are accepting what we can get when we can get it, and not asking for everything all at once. That's the thing. It's like, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I'm not saying that we should get everything all at once, but I mean, both the liberals and the conservatives, they didn't mean way back when what they mean today. Way back when, liberals were more about, being liberal, not socialist. And I
But they were humanists. Classical liberals were humanists, basically.
Yeah, it was
life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, people.
Yeah, classical liberalism and like classical or paleoconservatism, or is paleoconservative classical liberal, whatever. But the point being, the two-party system we have now both want bigger government. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of artifice from the Republicans about smaller government. I mean, point to me a bill in which they have tried to reduce the size of government instead of just trying to block government expansion. How have they actually tried to diminish it? None.
Rand Paul has proposed a few, but he's kind of different.
I'm still waiting for the day when a Republican says we need to cut military spending.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be holding my breath for that.
That was Ron Paul.
Well, I think Ron Paul has talked about cutting military spending.
Yeah,
everybody knows he's a rhino. He's a rhino. Well, every other Republican's a rhino. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the key to it is, see, what you gotta understand is that the dynamic in this system is that whenever a upstart party, whenever another, like a third party, and which is funny because there's no such thing as a fourth party, all of these other parties like the Greens and the Browns and the Blues and or whoever, they're all third parties. But whenever a third party starts to come to prominence, one of the other parties, one party or the other of the Democrats or the Republicans will end up saying, well, we can't let them get big, so what do they believe in? What do they believe in? What is it that's attracting so many voters to them? How can we co-opt that? And they'll adopt a few of the planks of, like, for example, Ralph Nader, his party got dissolved because they kept on adopting all of these things, like the environmentalist stuff and the economic controls of the Green Party. The Democrats did, so they co-opted by adopting additional planks into their main party plank to make those people happy and diminish the power of the upstart party. But that's how you affect change in one of the big two parties, is by you have this upstart party like the Libertarians who say smaller government, smaller military spending, smaller entitlement spending, smaller, end the drug war, end the drug war, end the drug war, and so when they get to be big, what ends up happening is the Republicans are looking at these, like, wow, 10% of our vote is going to these Libertarians. We're losing so many people. What's their deal? Oh, holy shit, they really do want this drug war to be ended. Maybe we should look into that. Can we do that? Can we?
Not without losing a great deal of their own votes in the process.
Well, actually, I think one strategy they could take that would at the very least, it would still might lose them some votes, but I think you could at least kind of cushion the blow. And that would be, instead of going straight to drugs are legal, go to, well, okay, it's cheaper to put drug addicts through rehab rather than prison.
Exactly. And so it's a constant push of small, you don't get everything you want at once. You have to get a little bit at a time. Like the fact that we're auditing the Fed, the audit the Fed bill passed, I think, didn't it?
Just the House. Just the House.
Senate.
Well,
Senate, not yet.
Well, and see, that's a good thing. It passed the House once. It's going to pass again, and when we have the Senate back, it'll pass there. So, do we want to throw that away by letting the Senate stay Democrat controlled, or do we want to, take what we got, take the ground that we got rather than losing all of it? You gotta think a little bit more long term as well. We're pushing the Republicans back to where they belong. We're pushing the progressives out of the Republican Party. And when it comes to alienating the religious right by ending the drug war, a lot of the religious right, you can convince them to just, hey, listen, you're going to vote Republican no matter what we say or what we do. So sit down, shut up, and, cast your vote when we tell you to. But we're ending this drug war.
The ultimate proof that can happen is Texas. Texas has changed from sending drug addicts to prison to sending them to drug rehab, just because it was cheaper.
Right. Well, I'm talking more about the voting dynamic. You don't have to ever really risk losing Republican votes on the religious right. They make a lot of noise and they get a lot of concessions, but really when it comes right down to it, we could tell them, you know what, we're going to not be going along with all of your religious right bullshit about social things, about drugs are bad and all that stuff, Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
We're not going to be going along with that because we need to court these libertarians and get them on board, or we don't get into power, period. So sit down, shut up, keep voting Republican like you're going to, because the religious right, they're never, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Are they going to vote for the Republican that is kind of on their side and, kind of 50-50 on the social issues? Or are they going to vote for the frickin' Democrat who hates everything they stand for?
Well, the Democrats might then start courting the evangelicals.
Hold up.
Scary.
You seem to be assuming that libertarians are the only people who can make their own third party. Couldn't the evangelicals start voting for a third party candidate the same as libertarians can?
Yeah, and that would be the best thing in the frickin' world, because then they'd realize just how little power that they actually would have. I think the evangelicals are just a very, 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 very vocal minority that are smaller than the libertarian independents out there. I believe that.
Well, they get shouted down at every assembly by Ron Paul supporters because they can't, can't match in voice.
Isn't the Constitution Party already kind of their party?
I don't know. I've never even heard of the Constitution Party.
Yeah, the Constitution Party is, but they're ultra conservative. They want to ban abortion. It's just ultra conservative.
Okay, their Constitution Party platform: total opposition to abortion in all cases, with the possible exception of those saving the life of the mother. Repeal federal and state laws they believe violate the right to keep and bear arms. An amendment to nullify court rulings that they feel will abuse the power of eminent domain and they fear will lead to arbitrary seizure. Revision of the First Amendment to affirm Trinity Christianity as the officially established religion of the United States. Revision of the 14th Amendment to deny automatic citizenship to those born to illegal immigrants. Repeal of the 16th Amendment, which permits the taxation of all forms of income by the federal government. Repeal of the 17th.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one.
Repeal of the 17th Amendment, which requires popular election of senators. Assertion of the rights of states to secede without interference from the federal government. And removal of compulsory school attendance laws. The better to allow parents to prevent their children from being taught. Oh yeah, that was commentary by Rational Wiki. What they said was the better to allow parents to prevent their children from being taught reality and indoctrinate them with creationism and fundamentalist homeschooling.
Well, see, though, I gotta put in a word for homeschoolers, unschoolers, people who send their kids to Montessori schools, and you know, there are situations where there's like co-ops where you have parents that take turns educating children in a neighborhood. These aren't all creationist rubes who do that. Okay, sending children to private schools. There are atheist parents who send their children to private religious schools because the education is better, but they don't. But the kids don't like, you know. There are private schools that don't teach creationism. That will teach science in science class, and then the kid may have to go to a class that, oh, I don't know, maybe they learn about the saints and theology and all that, but, you know, the kids aren't actually forced to be religious or anything like that, especially not in the home. So, you know, unfortunately, yes, there are weird Christian dominionist, creationist assholes who homeschool so they can brainwash their children, but there are many, many others who want alternatives in education, but it's because they want their children to have a better education than what the imperial federal government
Well, this is interesting. Apparently in 2008, the Constitution Party was actually the third largest political party in the U.S. They had 438,222 registered voters.
Interesting. Well, as far as their planks are concerned, I mean, okay, making Christianity the official religion of the United States is just hilarious because that means they just don't get it.
No. It wasn't just Christianity. It was triune Christianity, meaning you have not the form of Christianity that believes in the Holy Trinity.
I know. Yeah, I heard that. So, I mean, making any religion an official religion of the United States just tells me, okay, you guys are just. It's like you're asking for things you know you're not going to get. Are you guys serious? You know, but here's the thing. They know how the game is played. They are making demands on everything that they want, knowing they're not going to get everything, and they're establishing power so that the Republicans will take notice and adopt their platforms. As Republicans, they're creating an external third party in order to impact change internally in the party that will actually take control of what they, and do everything that they well, not everything, but you know what I mean. That's what it's all about. It's one of those kinds of things where you gotta understand the Libertarian Party will never have a president of the United States. The Libertarian Party is only all it's ever going to be is a pushing party, a party to push the Republicans to the right place. And the more we push them, the more momentum we get, the less need there's going to be for a Republican Party because for a Libertarian Party, because the Libertarian Party is going to morph the Republican Party into the Libertarian Party.
Okay.
Eventually.
So,
it's just a push through.
That's something I have to contest, actually.
Well, how many generations? I mean, I'm a real cynic here. I mean, how many generations will it take? And can our push to turn Republicans into Libertarians defeat the push to basically make a dystopian state as hellhole? I mean, because they're pushing faster than we are. I assure you.
So I've got an example of the co-opting of the people in the third party into the Republican Party. This is in that same Facebook group where it's private and only delegates are allowed. Matt Holdridge, who was the campaign coordinator for Ron Paul for Colorado and was instrumental in getting Ron Paul delegates to vote for Santorum delegates to go on to national as a unity slate that he sprung on them at the last minute that completely lost Colorado for Ron Paul. This is the guy that sold out Ron Paul, but somehow he still has his position because Ron Paul is horrible about getting all the traitors out of his own campaign. He posted this to this Ron Paul delegates group. And he says, "From my friend on the campaign, good thing Ron Paul didn't quit or give up on the Republican Party the first, second, or even third time they wronged him. He stayed and held his ground and eventually is becoming the most productive advocate of liberty yet. I can understand if you can't stomach voting for the big government nominee, but the GOP is ripe for the liberals, or the liberty ideals, so don't wimp out. Right? So
Okay.
he's basically posting, stay in the GOP, stay in the GOP. Now is not the time to leave. Now that we see that there's no point for you to be here, don't switch parties. Don't vote for Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to urge all of the people who came into the Republican Party only for Ron Paul to stay there. And this guy is a fucking GOP hardliner. He was never really behind Ron Paul.
Right.
This was an example of them infiltrating the third party movement and having their person run his campaign and completely sell him down the river.
Right. Can you do me a favor? Can you say from Daxon Islander, suck my balls? Thank you, sir. Now.
A lot of people do.
Okay.
A lot of people suck Daxon's balls.
That's what I heard. So, you know what? Okay. So.
Right into his mouth. We're going to drop him. Yep.
I hate you. I hate you so much. Alright. So, back to what I was saying. Okay, fine. I might concede that a third party might be a viable option in order to push the Republicans into the right direction, but however, wouldn't that require that I need to stop trying to use big words. A great deal of libertarians would need to jump ship to the Libertarian Party in order to pressure the Republicans into adopting the Libertarian platform.
Yes, and what you do, and this is the way you strategize. Like, if you go to North Dakota, or Montana, or South Dakota, or Utah, where, Utah is going to vote overwhelmingly for Romney. He's a freaking Mormon. You think Utah's going to, if you don't understand that Utah's going to go 70% to Romney, I mean, seriously. But see, you go to a state that is going to go for the Republican candidate and you vote your conscience there. But if, like for me, I'm in Nebraska. Nebraska is one of the, like, 3 states, I think. I think Alaska and Maine are the only other 2 that has a split delegation, where it's like we have 5 electoral votes because it's 3 congressional districts plus 2, right? The first congressional district is eastern Nebraska. If you draw a line down the middle of Nebraska, that's the first congressional district on the east side, except for Omaha, which is the second congressional district, and then the third is to the west, western Nebraska. So whoever gets at least 2 congressional districts also wins the additional 2 electoral votes. So Obama actually got 1 electoral vote from Nebraska, from the 2nd district of Omaha, because McCain got the first, east and west Nebraska, all of rural Nebraska, right? And so McCain got 4. Now I'm in Omaha. I'm in the 2nd district. Obama won the 2nd district last time. I'm not voting for Gary Johnson against, and throwing that vote away, because we need to win Omaha to get that 1 extra electoral vote. I don't have the luxury of voting my conscience in this election, but someone living in Kentucky does.
Right. Or Georgia, because I know Romney's going to win my state, so I can just cast
right,
that
and
vote
that's
to the
how
Libertarian.
right, and that's how you vote your conscience, and you're sending a message to the Republicans saying, listen, in red states where that Romney was going to win, all of these libertarians cast these votes for libertarian candidates against Romney, and they're going to see 10-15% of the vote going to Gary Johnson in those states, and they're going to be like, holy shit, we better get our act together, because well, that's what it's all about. It's basically, for me, it's anyone but Obama. I have to vote against Obama and vote for the guy that's going to win, or has a chance of winning, in order to prevent him from, I could not stomach to see Nebraska or Omaha, Nebraska go to Obama again. So I'm voting for Romney. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Your apology is not accepted. I mean, even if I was the deciding vote, if a vote for Romney would beat Obama, I'd still vote for Johnson. And I would do it with a big, smug smile on my face, looking right at the Republican Party doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
if it's any consolation, in 2004 I voted for Badnarik, okay?
Okay.
Because I could not stomach another term of Bush, but I couldn't stomach John Kerry either. That guy was such a freaking lurch from the Munsters.
along with Dax's feelings right there, and Dax was also a delegate for the Republican Party. You know, there's a lot of delegates here that we're talking about that are feeling this way. We have Joel Cannon in that Facebook group. He says, I think the RNC train wreck will work in our favor no matter what happens in the general election. If Obama wins, they'll say, Ron Paul supporters caused Romney to lose. And I'll respond with, that's right. Next time, listen to us if you want to win.
That's exactly what I want to be saying. I've said that already. It's like, oh, you guys lost? You guys lost after you disenfranchised us and beat us down and basically said our voices didn't matter? Oh, poor babies. Guess you better listen to us next time. Otherwise, you might see another Democrat in office.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
And if you don't like it, well, no skin off our nose.
I cannot handle another 4 years of Obama. I'm sorry.
And that's your right to vote that way.
See, at least I'm going into the voting booth and voting what I think is necessary to do, fully informed, fully rational about it, understanding the entire process. And I think I understand it better than most, and it sickens me to see other people going in there and voting, you know, oh, anyone vote Obama, you know, holding their nose and voting for Romney. I'm not holding my nose and voting for Romney. I'm not holding my nose at all. I mean, I think he's a decent man, and when you really look at it, he has character, and I don't think he's going to be, I mean, I'll probably eat my words on this, I don't think he's going to be as big state as you may think he is. He was pressured, and he was, you know, pushed by political winds to do what he needed to do to rise in the ranks, but I think once he gets to that top spot, you know, I don't know. I just don't know. But he's got to be better than the socialist, freaking rabid, anti-American, anti-colonial, you know, America-hating. America needs to come back to its rightful place in the world, right alongside of everyone else. There's no such thing as American exceptionalism, well, except as far as like there's, you know, British exceptionalism and Swedish exceptionalism. You know, this guy doesn't get it, and he is anti-American in every sense of the word, and he needs to go.
Yeah, he's you didn't build your business guy.
Yeah.
He didn't. That's not what he said. That was a quote mine. If you look at that quote in context,
It's worse in context.
No, in context, he was saying you didn't build the infrastructure within which that can function. Because right before that, he'd been talking about things like roads. And he said, if you own a business, you didn't build that, meaning the infrastructure within which the business can function. And that is true.
Contestable.
No, it's not.
Well, no, not really, because the government didn't build it. Human beings built it. Unfortunately, well, there are actually certain municipalities that collect taxes and then funnel that tax money to private companies who are contracted to, say, build roads, water systems, you know, etc. and so forth.
Does it matter?
But at the same time, it's the government that's making the decision, we need a road here, as opposed to some guy building a road up to the edge of his property and saying, if you want to connect your road to mine, go right ahead and be my guest.
Well, it doesn't matter, because ultimately, all of the tax money that built those roads that the government built, it all comes from the private sector anyway. So you know what? The private sector built the roads too.
It provided the money to build the roads, but at the same time, if you had left it to the private sector, those roads would not have been built, or they would have been built in a manner that was only beneficial to the people who were building any individual road. Like I'm saying, you build the road up to the edge of your property. If you want to connect your road to mine, go right ahead.
You don't understand the free market, do you?
Well, I mean, okay. If a private organization builds a road, yeah, they're going to build it in a way that benefits them, so that they can move goods and services to as many people as they possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but no one business is going to build all the roads we need, and
No,
really
that's why other businesses do it and you have competition.
So how are you going to organize all of those? How are you going to get them to cooperate and coordinate properly?
Oh, I don't know. Talk to management of the various road building companies. How do you orchestrate selling cell phones to everybody and setting up cell phone networks? It's aside from the FCC regulations, it's done without government. How do you orchestrate?
Let us have cell phones in orbit.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Didn't the government put the cell phone satellites in orbit?
Yeah, but you can privatize the space industry, and actually, as much as it's sad to see NASA not having a manned space program, that opens the door for private industry. And private industry, since they need to, since they're going to get money from actual people, that makes it more likely for you and me to get there. Although that'll take a long time because they're going to start being funded by really, really, really rich venture capitalists. But later on, they're going to make much more money the more people that they can serve. So that makes it more likely that when I'm 105 or something, that I can actually get there.
It's called
yeah, but at the same time, a lot of people will point to like these private space agencies and just say, oh, they're so efficient because they're spending less money. But at the same time, they're able to spend less money because most of the technology they're using was already developed by NASA.
Bullshit.
Look up the X Prize.
SpaceX. Let's look up SpaceX.
But actually, a lot of the NASA technology, because a lot of the NASA technology, they don't. They're using rocket fuel to push an entire rocket out of the atmosphere, and you don't need to do that anymore. Do you know the name of the person who managed the first private space flight? Because I want to give you a name to Google.
Richard Branson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you do know about that.
Yeah.
Space plane. It was a totally different method than what they're using in NASA.
Okay, fair enough then.
Yeah. Well, there's also Burt Rutan, and space.
I was trying to think of. Thank you.
Yeah, Burt Rutan. I actually, to do this, I actually missed out on watching Bill Whittle's Stratosphere Lounge. The Stratosphere Lounge. Do you guys know who Bill Whittle is?
No.
Anyone? He's on PJTV. He has a show with Scott Ott and Steve Green called Trifecta. He also has a thing he does called The Firewall, and another one he does called Afterburner. And he is probably one of the most articulate libertarian voices I have ever heard. You would do very well to check out his channel and listen to him. You will be, I swear to God, you will be orgasming in your seat without touching yourself by listening to him.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Type his name in the text box. I'd be very appreciative.
I will actually do you one better.
By the way, as long as we're here and talking about these, could I ask you a question that's completely off topic, except it's libertarianism?
Shoot.
No, she's not single.
No. Okay. This is kind of... Okay, this is the one thing... Okay, I'm a social libertarian. But the one thing... This is kind of the one issue that keeps me from really being... Or it's the main issue, probably, that keeps me from being a fiscal libertarian. Okay, you guys, being fiscal libertarians, would probably rather see a lot of welfare replaced with private charity, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah,
okay, isn't private charity going to be reduced in the times when it's most needed, like times of economic hardships? Because if the economy's failing, there's going to be more people unemployed, so there's a need for more charity, but at the same time, people are making less money, so they can donate less money.
I will counter that with Hurricane Isaac right now is battering New Orleans, and there will be a bunch of celebrities getting on some of the major networks, and they will have a charity drive that will generate millions of dollars, because every time there is a tragedy such as that, these charities actually ramp up their money draw capabilities.
I'll even
but hold on. to make that argument, you would probably want to demonstrate, for example, that they're going to make at least as much money as they did when Katrina hit.
No.
Depends on if like Walmart trucks are gonna be pushed away by FEMA again.
No, I'll even do one better. Economic hardships don't happen when you have a sound fiscal policy in the government where they're not taking all of the money from the producers of the and redistributing wealth. And if you were to get rid of all of the social welfare programs of the government, the unseen benefit of that would be a much stronger, more vibrant economy that is more, it's almost like a drought-resistant crop. It is a lot less likely to be, to have those kinds of hardships, and everyone is made richer. Therefore, there's more distributed wealth around the entire economy for everyone to give more later.
Didn't we have booms and busts before, like, we became more statist? I thought booms and busts have always happened.
Look into the Great Depression and Roosevelt and how he took us off the gold standard.
Actually, that began with Wilson and finished up with Nixon.
Well, I was talking about,
I think it began with Reagan, or not Reagan, with Lincoln. Lincoln, yeah. No, Lincoln.
Did we have booms and busts back in the 1800s still?
No.
Okay, what about when that, hold up, what about when that, like, ship sank that was carrying all the gold from California? I thought that exacerbated a small recession into a major depression.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but there's a good reason why the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, all the way up to 1910 or so, before World War I, that is called the Golden Age of America. That's when we actually saw, on a relative scale, the best and most economic stability, economic growth in GDP, all that, and during the Reconstruction, post-Civil War, all the way up to World War I. We didn't get into any foreign entanglements, didn't have any real wars going on, except for, I think, wasn't there another war that then, Spanish-American War? No, I don't remember. There was very few actual conflicts going on. There may be little regional things, but yeah, post-World War or post-Civil War, that was a huge, a nice, stable thing. But there was no Federal Reserve Bank. We were on a gold standard. There was very little government intervention. I mean, name a single president between between the end of the Civil War and 1900. Can you? Probably not, because they were so unobtrusive in the economy. They just let it ride, and it worked.
Now, I do have to bring up one concern regarding private charity, and that is that most, or at least in the United States, most private charities are religious. And some of those private charities that are religious get into unscrupulous practices, such as, well, okay, homeless people, you have to become a Christian and for us to feed you, or something like that. Or,
I can agree with that, actually.
Oh, please do.
I was when I went to Idaho to find some work because Colorado wasn't offering jack, and I stayed at a homeless shelter, and it happened to be a Christian homeless shelter. And I traveled around and went to many homeless shelters, most of them religious. And
what?
SS Central America. That was the name of the ship. The SS Central America.
The main point is the only thing that they asked us to do was not talk bad about God. Past that, we could do anything. We watched horror films. There was really no restriction as far as religion was concerned.
Here in Colorado
Springs. Did they offer you, if you wanted, did they offer you the freedoms to, say, practice another religion that was not Christian?
Oh, yeah, they
had also ask you the freedom to, say, encourage, say, skepticism and critical thinking and speak against religion, so long as you weren't just, insulting their particular religion.
Oh, they didn't care, as long as you didn't, just outright try to offend them. But yeah, we had a guy in there who went down and bowed his head to the east every day.
Yeah. When talking about charity, I actually have this spreadsheet nice and handy. This is the second time in a row, Michael, and we've talked about something I had a spreadsheet for. Last time it was all of the GDP growth per capita, and GDP per, or taxation, tax revenues as a percentage of GDP, and all that stuff. I had that ready. This spreadsheet was a result of over a year ago. Everyone should probably grab it. I put it into the Skype call. It is a breakdown. This is 2004 data. It's the only time I could find it. The data where I had all the data points that lined up. I found, I don't have the cited sources for this anymore. I really wish I did. But I found out how much the total amount of welfare spending on state, local, and federal welfare was in 2004. And I had to find out how many total recipients estimated if there was when it came to, oh shit, hold on, let me try it again. Oh, I don't have you on my contact list, that's why. You need to add me to your list, Andra.
Okay.
Okay, and I wanted to say...
You are Gerald, correct?
What? I am what?
You're Gerald, correct? Or Jared?
Jared, yes.
Sorry,
No,
I'm
I'll
on
get
glasses that aren't my prescription right now.
There. I just sent the request.
Oh, you just
Okay.
said...
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now let's try this again. Now here's the thing. Some of this is estimated, but it really illustrates a broader point anyway. It doesn't have to be so specific. Are you able to get it? I'm going to wait until you have it.
I'm actually putting it in the recording screen.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Now, this is all 2004 data, and I did this in 2009, I think. So I had to look for where all of the data points lined up, and 2004 was the only place I could find, because the total number of recipients of federal welfare was estimated at 1.6 million families, which is average family size of 4, let's just say, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the total average, and it's a good thing I found the data on families, because it's like households.
Mike,
Right?
you're down. The show's down.
They need to refresh.
And by the way, what I was talking about, the Panic of 1857, that was caused by the sinking of the SS Central America.
Right. Okay. Anyway, this whole thing about charity, what you got to realize is we spent $427.8 billion, right?
Right.
In total state, local, and federal welfare estimated. So let's just say $428 billion. That went to 1.6 million families, which means that the total spent across all government levels across the board was $267,000 per family. Now, can you imagine if we just took that money directly from the tax base and gave them all a check for $267,000 rather than making them go through all of the rigmarole? Can you imagine, instead of doing having welfare offices set up, paying construction workers for that, staffing it with a bunch of staff, spending all the money on the offices and all of the materials and everything, just freaking write a check to the recipients of that need it. We could actually cut that in half, and still everyone is making more money than I've ever made in a year in my life.
Okay, and when you cut that in half, this is what I want you to do to cut that in half. I want you to revise this sheet. I want you to take all of the federal employees and state employees that it takes to manage the system that gives them their money, and turn them into welfare recipients as well, so that no one loses a job here or loses their income here when you're doing it. Turn them into welfare recipients too, and you probably still come out ahead.
Yeah, see.
That's actually a really good idea.
Well, think about this. Look at line A5 there. The total amount
A5?
Yeah, A5. $22,000 monthly per family is being spent, or was it in 2004, was being spent on welfare stuff. Now, of course, some of this includes Medicare, Medicaid, really expensive medical treatments and stuff, but I found out an estimate of the total amount the recipients of this welfare would actually get. It's about $36,000 a year. Because if they're getting more than that, holy shit, I'm gonna cry, because my wife and I are busting our asses work and going broke, making $44,000 a year, raising, you know, a family of 5 kids, so family of 7, so $44,000 a year, we're barely getting by. You know, I would hope that they're only getting 36,000, but that's, you know, about 3,000 a month, and that's only 13% of the actual amount being spent per family, which means that government is about 87 or 86.5% inefficient. 86.5% of all of the money being spent on this welfare stuff, about approximately, is going towards the red tape, the bureaucracy. Now look further down. Now, if I did an estimate of if we were to get these families $36,000 and base it off of the actual reported, mandatorily reported stuff that private charities have to report to the SEC and to the IRS and all that stuff, I actually found on Forbes, this is another data point, this is why 2004 was the only place I could find, I actually found on Forbes.com a list of the top 50 private charities, and by the time you get out of the top 25, you're talking about like a private charity making only like $400,000 a year. There's only a good 25 of them in the country. We're talking American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the Shriners Hospitals, and all these other big charities. They have to report how much actual money that they spend on their infrastructure, their nonprofits. So they have to justify all of their spending, and they have to put out a number of how much of a percent of the actual money donated to them goes to the actual recipient of the charity. And I come to find out that like American Red Cross is 95% efficient. Salvation Army is like 93% efficient. There's a few out there that are 80% efficient.
There's a good reason for why they remain that efficient, because if they get worse than 30% going towards overhead, they're not included in the combined federal campaign. So the booklet that government employees get, where they're all really encouraged to get a portion of their check going to some charity, and if everyone, in the civil service, if everyone in an office does it, they'll get like a plaque or something. But in the military, if everyone in your unit does it, you get a little a ribbon for your guidon. You know.
Oh yeah, you told me about this. Well,
so if they get worse than 30%, they're not included in the book at all. So.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So they want to be included in this book of auto debits from people's paychecks.
Yeah, the worst ones were actually the United Way, and the United Way seems to be like an umbrella group that gives money to all these other charities, and so they're just like adding a middleman to. It's you're adding a middleman there. You're adding another level of organization to what you're giving to when you give to them.
Hey guys, I really do need to get a shower, so I'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.
All right, see you later.
But yeah, the upshot of it is, the point is, okay, if we have $36,000 per recipient of 1.6 million, if you're looking down column A here, A10, A11, the total amount actually needed by all recipients is $57 billion, which is a far cry from the $427 billion up at the top. That's, $380 billion difference, right?
Yeah.
Or 360, or whatever it is. But now with 87% efficiency, you only need to raise 6.7 or 67 billion instead of 427 billion. That is a savings of $360 billion a year if you let private charities do it. And then imagine this also. All of those bureaucrats, all of those paper pushers, all of those non-productive people in society, well, first of all, we're saving $360 billion a year in tax revenue that could stay in the system, that could stay in the companies that are producing the stuff. That's capital. That is all capital that can be used to increase and grow the economy. And man, when we grow that economy, we're going to need employees to, and that's a lot of jobs that are being created. It's a good thing we don't have those bureaucrats managing all the freaking welfare systems anymore. Hello, you have a job now that produces something rather than taking a paycheck out of the public dole yourself. So now you're a taxpayer instead of a tax waster. So that grows our economy as well. And now all these people are still being helped. And it's just, people can't understand what kind of a drain on the system this is. And this is what you need to bring up every time you have someone say, private charity just wouldn't cover all the need. Yeah, it would. Because if you look at A16 there, that is the government to charity ratio. Government and versus charity, yeah, charity is 6.3 times more efficient with the money. So you would only need 1/6 of the money being given to private charity in order to cover the same need. So people say, oh, you know, people would never donate as much to charity as they were forced to have it taken out in taxes. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But you only need 1/6 of the amount anyway, so shut the fuck up.
And this is
really.
And this is where I have to interject, not only from an economic standpoint, but I'd almost say like anarcho standpoint. Nobody's entitled to my money. You know, if you want to come forward and make your case for why I should give you money, okay, go ahead and state your case. If you have
this
to
is voluntary here. Yeah,
yes.
Private charity is voluntary. The other one is not. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Private business is voluntary. The other one is not.
Right, and that's my point. This is taken at gunpoint. If I don't pay this
Literally,
tax,
yes.
I'm going to be put in a cage, and if I refuse that, I'm probably going to get shot. That's how police are working nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either you give us your money to give to other people, or you get shot. Screw that. If you want money from me, you better put a little presentation together and show me why my money is worth, or why you're worth my money. I mean, how much did that one bus lady get? Like $500,000, and she was just being tormented by kids. And yes, I did just say she just was tormented. Just. I know I kind of downplay it, but $500,000 just for that. Are you kidding me when you say that America's too greedy? Really?
So, Libre Anarchy.
Well, yeah, actually, it's raise a village because I'm a minarchist, not an anarchist now. But
I'm not
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, raise a village.
Oh, Audrey, you used to be an anarchist.
Yeah. Well, actually, what would I like to see a fully voluntary stateless society? Yes, I just think that's one of those things. Well, how many generations is that going to take? If it happens anytime soon, it'll happen through a collapse, and what you'll have is statists, a bunch of people who are conditioned to be statists, living in a stateless society. So what's going to happen is you will get a bunch of warlords and stuff. But if you whittle it down to minarchy, and then slowly people learn to do things voluntarily, then I think that you can have a functional stateless society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but here we go with the minarchists, libertarian, and anarchists.
So, raise a village.
Yes.
Are you with me? I will be your cameraman, and we need to get on a school bus. We'll split.
This sounds kinky.
Split it. No, it's not kinky. It's not kinky. We're going to get on a school bus, and you're just going to have to sit there and be abused for 30 minutes. The pay is great.
So, is this camera going to be on during that 30 minutes of abuse, or...?
If the pay is right, I'll go ahead and do it.
Hey, everything we're saying here is completely legal because I have a camera.
Actually, he's right. So, it's not prostitution, it's porn.
Right. Which really boggles my mind. If you're paid for sex and it's on camera and it's, put on, Blu-rays and stuff, it's porn. If it's not on camera, and you're paid for sex, it's prostitution and therefore illegal.
You're trying to make sense.
There are places where that is not the case, though. If you are in Hollywood or in New York, you actually would have to have a license to film and permission to film on that day in order to, be considered a legitimate enterprise in those cities.
Otherwise, it's not legitimate porn, then it's legitimate rape.
Apparently.
So a kinky couple that's into videotaping one another, or swingers and such, they're into videotaping, it's illegal.
Yeah, and you know what would be worse? Worse than arresting you for prostitution? would be if they told those local unions of actors, you know, the actors guilds, that you didn't hire union actors. You know what would happen to your house? Holy crap.
There's a reason why Republicans are like, okay, if you're not filming it, it's prostitution and illegal, but if you are filming it, it's porn, and therefore it's fine. It's because they don't want other people to have any fun unless they can watch and get off to it themselves. They're voyeurs. You know, these dirty old men. They're like, it's if you're not letting me in on the fun, then then I'm going to pass a law to make sure that you get arrested. But if you are letting me in on the fun, then hey, it's all good.
Wow. Yeah, you've been fired, sir.
Right. Well, what I don't understand with things like drugs and prostitution, you have people making arguments like, oh, but we want to protect the women, and oh, but the children, we want to protect the children from the gangs and the drugs. And it's like, if you prohibit something, you create a black market. You're not protecting anybody. You're making it more dangerous for everyone involved.
You see, you're talking with logic. Knock it off. You're confusing Republicans everywhere.
Actually, I'm curious. Michael almost called you Liber Anarchy?
Yeah, I used to be Liber Anarchy.
Okay, do you know who this is? Who I am?
Yes, you're Eagle Eye, right?
Yes, Eagle Eye 1975.
Alright, I have to resub to you.
Whoa, oh, really? Did you unsub because of me pissing off all the anarchists?
No, actually, I'm still subbed to you on my other channel, but I have to resub you on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
I actually watch a lot of people that I completely disagree with, actually.
I pissed off a lot of anarchists. I really, really did, because I called them children. Children that want to be fringe, that just want to be niche, and, like, oh, look at me, I can draw my A symbols and shit like that.
Well, some awful, but I got to say that is an ad hominem attack too. So I mean, you were just like, I don't know how specific people in here feel about, say, Stefan Malinu, but like, you know, have a conversation with Stefan Malinu. He's not a child. Or like Peter Schiff and Stefan Malinu, they debated minarchism versus anarchism, and it was pretty interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't stand Stefan Molyneux. He's kind of got this whole snarky, elitist, I'm the smartest person in the room type of thing going on. That it really turns me off. So, yeah.
Somebody sent him an email saying, well, I don't agree with his views, and then Stefan went off like, views, these are not views. I am a philosopher, I put time into this, I am logical, I am reasonable. These are not just views, this is my philosophy. I'm like, dude.
Wow. Yeah, that's a
but
line.
But my point is, I mean, he has his moments, but like, he's not a child. Or I don't think Murray Rothbard was a child. For example.
Oh, no, I know. That was the end of a 2-part video when I finally that was my conclusion to the video after making point after point after point after point, and it was all based off. Do you know who Black Acid Lizard is?
Yeah, I do. Now, I don't know that he's still an anarchist. I believe I unsubbed from him because he's been getting really, really racial.
He's a jerk. And, the story goes... Actually, are we on camera still?
Yes.
Are we still doing the
we are.
Voting and Action thing?
Yes, we are.
Well,
you guys are playing catch-up.
Well, I have no problem with talking bad about anyone, and having it be on public record. I just didn't want to, derail the entire conversation.
Yeah.
Well, all I ask is that, give his channel name, or even link his channel so people can actually see it and go judge for themselves. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, I might say, okay, somebody might hear me say Black Acid Lizard, he's just gotten really racial. Well, you can go to his channel and go see. So, and you can form your own opinions. Have at it. I'm not sitting here insulting the man like, oh, well, he said, she said, this.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I just didn't, I didn't want to go off on this whole big story about, my history with the anarchists on YouTube. and derail everything unless there's nothing else to really say.
Oh, we've got plenty.
I'm sure.
Actually, I am, like, burned out. I don't know what happened. I was way too anxious coming into this.
Well, as far as the whole Ron Paul thing is concerned, you guys feel free to vote for Ron Paul, vote for Gary Johnson, but I hope that I've helped you guys at least understand the dynamic a little bit more, and, and maybe, the way I see it, this whole thing is you got to keep the pressure on the Republicans by voting against them, and, when they turn against you. But as for me, I can't, because Romney needs to win because Ron Paul can't win. Ron Paul cannot win, neither can Gary Johnson, but they still need to get enough votes to really be a pressure. And so, but as far as I'm concerned, Obama must not win, so Romney has to win because Romney is the only candidate that can beat Obama. So therefore, I have, that's the way it is. It's just the way it is.
Now, I understand where you're coming from. I might actually side with you were I in a state like yours.
Mm-hmm. In my situation, right? Or like, if you're in, like, freaking Illinois, did you know Illinois may actually go to Romney? But it's going to be very close.
Illinois, go to Romney.
Yeah, probably. That would actually be kind of funny.
Well, Massachusetts was hilarious. Also, I guess.
Yeah, I think it would be hilarious. But here's the thing that people need to understand about the current voting, or the current, I'm sorry, not voting, polling. They are polling. A lot of these organizations are polling. They're not using the turnout data. See, when they do their polling, they will poll X number of Republicans, X number of Democrats, X, Y, and Z of Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. And they will include only the first answers they get from enough people to fill that, that amount. So, like, if they're doing 1,000 people and, Republicans were 40% of the vote, they will do 400 Republicans in their poll and stop taking more answers from Republicans. And they will also, like, let's say it was 42% Democrats, they will take 420 Democrats in this 1,000-person poll. And they will stop taking more answers from Democrats in that poll. So they don't do the polls based off just of whoever happens to be at home, because I'll tell you what, then every Democrat would ever, would always poll high because welfare recipients don't have to go to work during the day, That was very bad, but
it's bad, but it's true. There is a bias there. They need to.
There is a polling bias on Democrats because they are more likely to be at home during the day. Not just because they don't have a job, it's a lot of them work night shifts and stuff. But anyway, the poor people tend to be Democrats, and poor people tend to work second and third shift. But the fact of the matter is they engineer the polls so that they get the right number of people in the right demographic to match up to the voting statistics of previous elections. Usually they go to the previous election cycle, which would be 2010. But a lot of these polls, especially MSNBC, CBS, all of these major, like New York Times polls, those kinds of polls from the liberal left-wing media, they're using statistical data of voter turnouts from 2008, when there was a huge love affair with Obama. But so they are oversampling Democrats, they are oversampling blacks, they are oversampling other minorities and interest groups that really, really, really hated Bush, really wanted, didn't want a old white guy as a president, hated what's her bucket, Sarah Palin, and were in love with their messiah, Obama. So they are using this data to engineer their polls to that, to that demographic. Some of them are even going back and using 2006 data from when Congress was taken over by the Democrats, and they're completely ignoring the last two election cycles. They are doing this because the media absolutely has to have a horse race. They have, and they keep on, it's like as Romney keeps on getting more and more points on Obama and starts surpassing him even in those polls, they are finding other ways to keep it so that Obama is like +1 or +2. so that they can report that Romney doesn't have, as many people as he thinks. If you actually were to engineer the polls based on 2010 data and the likely turnout data of this election, you would see that Romney is actually up by 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 points in various places. He is, we're talking a landslide is coming, and nobody can see it because the media is whitewashing these polls, and they're making it into a horse race that isn't going to happen. Romney is going to just kick the shit out of Obama in this election, and people they don't even know, because they don't know how to interpret polls.
And from my perspective, it's the other way with the margin, especially with Ron Paul supporters basically declaring that they're going to not vote for him. And all the evidence I've seen has gone the other way. I haven't seen this polling data, but if I'm thinking 5 points one way and you're thinking 10 points the other, and that actually does happen, that it is 10 points the other, and everybody else's eyes are where mine are, where we're thinking that Romney's about to lose and then he wins by that much of a landslide. You know how many conspiracy theories are going to pop up about voter fraud?
Actually, that brings me to the question that I was going to ask. I heard, now, I don't know if this is some sort of weird conspiracy theory or not. I heard that the votes for the 2012 election are going to be counted in Spain. Is this even true?
No. That's a misinformation by just a few little words. The votes for the 2012 election will be counted by a company based in Spain.
Okay, but they're counting them here.
Yes. The company is based in Spain, and I disagree with it. I think it needs to stay domestic, but the problem with domestic vote counting is, well, he who hires the company, who runs the company.
You are going to have bias anyway. So there is still a lot of room for fraud.
Have you guys seen the Diebold documentary about the Florida election? And they found that they actually had Diebold had actually done vote flipping in the programming of their vote counting machines in Florida.
I've seen that, where it was the case that they didn't have to actually access any of the computers. All they needed to access was one of the voting machines, and they would be able to get a script in to be able to do that. And as soon as that card that came from the voting machine got transferred to a computer, the script would transfer to the computer, and it would all be done with right there. And
I do not agree with electronic voting whatsoever. It all needs to be written down, and to a certain extent, I do not agree with the whole concept of private voting. I think that all votes need to be public.
Well, you see, the two-party system would very much fight against any changes to private voting, because it might actually show that they've been rigging things for a very long time. And
they've been cooking the books.
The proof would be researchable, and they'd really love to erase any trace of any third party having any power.
The first rule of committing fraud is don't leave a paper trail.
I think not only should we have to have it, I'm in favor of having an electronic assistance machine, but I think it should spit out a paper copy. You should have to put your thumbprint on it, just like we do to Iraqis. And whenever you put your thumb in the ink, it should stain it for 3 days, just like we do to the Iraqis, because, we care more about their elections than we do our own. And that paper should be kept with that thumbprint on it, and
for
your
many,
name.
many years.
Yes, so that it can be recounted and recounted. And we could actually make it so that sheriffs could actually take a sample of the ballots and go door to door and actually contact people and say, was this your vote? And did you actually vote this way? Just to make sure. Not that you're going to get arrested or anything. No matter what you say, we just want to know that you voted this way. Tell us yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
To put another level of security on our ballots.
Mm-hmm. Well, you couldn't.
Right, and with the thumbprint, they can't say that's poll testing because unless maybe there's somebody without thumbs, but take a fingerprint, take a handprint.
Quadriplegic comes by, take a nose print.
Actually, an ear print would work better.
True. Ears are very
distinctive.
Yeah. On that note, what do you guys think about this whole voter ID thing?
Needs to happen.
I agree. It needs to happen.
There are many things that what kind of voter ID do you mean? Because right now, when we register people to vote, when Dex and I go out, we don't have to check their ID that what they put down on the voter registration is correct. There's already a list of IDs that you're going to have one of them in order to get into the polling place, in order to cast your vote anyway. And, there's all sorts of things you can use. Even a college student ID will work. And those things are notoriously easy to forge. So are you saying that you need a voter ID to even register to vote? Because that would put voter registration drives like us in a little bit of a pinch. We'd probably have to get extra training from the Secretary of State in order to even legally be able to check someone's ID. Or they'd have to do away with voter registration drives altogether, which I'm sure that the Republicans would love, because it would slant towards their favor to just eliminate all voter registration drives.
Or what you could do is have you show your ID when you show up to vote, or you can show your birth certificate, or you can show your social security card. You should try to make it such that it costs a little bit of money to get an ID. So try to make it such that nobody can say, well, this is technically a poll tax.
The way I see it, if you're going to be required to show an ID to do anything regarding the government, like if you have to show an ID to get welfare, if you have to show an ID, like, let's just say, policeman stops you on the street and has probable cause.
Probable cause.
And says, "Can I see your ID?" What are you going to tell him? I don't have one. I don't own an ID.
Right.
No. Having an ID is part of citizenship, as far as I'm concerned. You need to have a valid ID, especially in this digital world where people, identity theft is so huge. Your identity is very important. You need to have a way to prove your identity to people who are, to officials and to people in the government. So,
being disabled myself, I know that there are services, like I don't drive, there are services who would take me to the DMV, and I could still get an ID, and they're really not that expensive.
Well, I think
the
state
difference...
ID cards that are not driver's licenses, but just a state ID card should be free, period. That way it's not a poll tax.
Well, I don't think mine was free, but still, it wasn't that expensive at all.
And the reason...
Any cost means it's a poll tax.
The reason why they have so many different forms of identification that are valid, that makes it so much easier to forge who you are when you go to the polls, is because they can't just use one form of ID that you have to pay for.
Right.
If they did make them, and it would be the difference of $30 per person, in order to do this, and actually have them tested beforehand to see if they actually are who they say they are. And do background checks like that. But the very big difference in all these other things that you need an ID for in your regular life, or the state can actually require you to have an ID for, but they can't require it for voting, is that voting has a lot of constitutional protections attached to it. And,
right.
even though some of the cases are very convoluted, they will make a case that any kind of ID requirement will disproportionately affect a minority, which is completely unconstitutional because of an amendment. You know, and it won't be because of the cost to the everyday average citizen. They'll actually have to make the case that it was a minority that was affected, and a protected minority at that. So,
but here's the thing: there will be activist groups, and I'm not saying that as like a bad thing. Those special interests. There will be groups that say, well, the Latinos of this community have been disenfranchised because they're poor and XYZ.
yeah.
So let's get them to the DMV. Let's get them set up with IDs. You know, or if they're not citizens, let's see if we can get them on the road to citizenship and set them up to be citizens or legal aliens.
Well, the reason why in Texas they couldn't pass their voter ID bill was because the same party that was pushing for it, that was in power, decided to start closing DMVs in very rural areas, to the point where a trip to go get a driver's license or a state ID card could be a 300-mile round trip for some people. That's how bad it was in Texas.
That just stinks like fish right there.
If you're 150 miles away from the nearest DMV, it's very hard on you to go get one, and they were counting the amount of gas it would take for you to go get that as a poll tax. You know.
See, that's just ridiculous. See, part of the thing about poll tax that I think people need to understand is that, like, for example, if you spend $10 on, let's say, a state ID, and that state ID is your ticket to not only voting, but getting state aid, state services. It's also a way to identify you to the police. It serves multiple functions. If it serves multiple functions, I would even argue if it serves more than just the function of allowing you to vote, then it can't be a poll tax.
Well, for those of us who are a little bit more extreme and would enforce mandatory voting, such as is the case in other countries, in order to get a 100% turnout, I would send the sheriffs out to anyone who did not have an ID, who was not on record as having an ID, and actually give it to them. Problem is, we have evangelical Christians who would consider that the mark of the beast, and it would scare the shit out of them to be taken down to a police station and given a mandatory ID card. It's like they're Native Americans who are afraid that the camera's going to steal their soul. They would freak out.
Now, unfortunately, I have a mother who listens to Alex Jones, and she's never met a conspiracy theory she didn't like. So, yeah, you're right. Those people would go nuts. Alex Jones would go nuts, and then all his little minions would go nuts.
Yeah. It's funny, when early in my YouTube career, I made a video about a conspiracy theory video that I saw with Alex Jones, and I had never heard of the guy. And I made a video saying, okay, I don't know if I should believe this video or not, but something about it doesn't feel right, so I'm going to ask everyone, who the hell is this Alex Jones guy in the first place? You would not believe the absolute flood of people saying, oh my god, what a douchebag, don't even listen to
Well, I'm actually surprised you didn't get a flood of people telling you to wake up. That you're, that you're a sheeple, that you're towing the party line, that's what they want you to think. You're tied to the official stories, the whole gamut.
Yeah, well, this is early on in my YouTube career when I also, was watching Loose Change and, asking, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
Right.
So.
Well, I actually do watch Alex Jones. I don't believe everything the guy says, but it's always good to look into what he says.
I can't stand listening to him just because of his I've smoked 3 packs a day for, since I was 2 years old type of voice.
Hey, bite me.
Yeah.
I smoke. I'm smoking right now, actually.
I smoked for 10 years, quit for 2, and went back to smoking for 6 more, okay? I know what it's like, but the guy's voice is so gravelly and so just unlistenable. I can't stand it.
Fair enough.
Well, okay. One thing that he did that I just hate is he was insulting Janet Napolitano, but he was insulting her hair.
That's the only thing you could think to insult her about?
Well, and then he started insulting her by just implying that she was very butch and saying, "Oh, well, I know men that have worked under her, and they say that all the women push around all the men." Now, well, you're not insulting her for her policies, for her politics. You're insulting her for her hair and that she's butch and that maybe there are
She's a man-hater. No, that's not just rumors. They've actually there's actually a federal lawsuit going on right now from male employees of the of Homeland Security suing her for workplace discrimination. There is an active lawsuit because of that. So it's not just rumors anymore. And in order to have an active lawsuit, they have to have a factual basis and a foundation.
Right now, but he didn't even bring up the lawsuit, though. That's the thing. He didn't say there was a lawsuit in the works now.
That's actually about 2 weeks old information, so I don't know how long ago you heard him say it. So.
Let's see, like last week.
Okay.
And he did say, "Oh, I found there. Here's an article. You can go to this article, and here's a lawsuit." No, then he just kind of said, you know, Janet Napolitano's staff, you know, they all say that she's a man-hater, so she must be a man-hater. And then he implied that she's a lesbian, and then he implied that lesbian cops are oogling his children.
He's all over the map sometimes. But, yeah, we're at 2 hours.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to wind it on down, guys.
Yeah, we got 9 more minutes. So we hit the 2 hour mark.
Although I enjoyed being on.
No, stick around. I'll tell you all about my experience with, after we're done recording, my experience with people like Black Acid Lizard.
Okay, yeah. Oh, by all means, yeah, go ahead.
My problem with Alex Jones is that he has cleaned up his act now that he has this rabid fan base. But previously, you can find him endorsing things like chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
Some of
endorses chemtrails. He still does.
And he
is an anti-vaxxer too.
Yes, and
I know. I hear this every day because my mother listens to it every day.
Wow. I have an aunt that's like that, actually. My dad is my dad's older sister, and we actually have had to tell her to stop emailing us this shit because she forwards everything that you could possibly imagine. That and the thing is, we've been me and my dad, we were on bulletin board systems 20 years ago. When it was dial-up and local BBS things, and people were talking about these conspiracy theories on the message boards back then, when it was you're talking to other people in the same city because it's all local. Before the internet got huge. We're talking 1991, 92.
Yeah, to Area 51 in 1995, and I was going to Periscope.com. I mean, I was a conspiracy theorist at one time too.
Yeah, but me and my dad have heard all this stuff, and she parrots everything she hears like it's new and exciting and original, and she just refuses to understand, or she refuses to use the resource that everyone else knows as Snopes. And
Snopes.com is a good site.
What's funny is when we told her about Snopes, she says, "Well, that's the truth according to them, and they're probably in on it too." And, okay, unfalsifiable claims should just be completely ignored. I don't trust Snopes with everything because they are actually, they're out as being very big Obama lovers. They are very dedicated to Democrats, and I've noticed a few of their political articles about, debunking things have a political spin to them that is favorable to the left and against the right. So I kind of, I even take what they say with a, big old helping assault,
Mm-hmm.
But that said, for the most part, if it's like a, conspiracy, or not a conspiracy theory, but if it's a just an article about some medical thing, then chances are that they're going to be right. They're not going to be political about that. So.
But what irks me about Alex Jones is sometimes he'll actually say something that's true. Like he might talk about the NDAA. Now, interestingly, now I do think a lot of the media does have a liberal bias, but for everyone who thinks, oh, it's the liberal lamestream media, yeah, Rachel Maddow, bedwetting liberal, she criticized the NDAA rather vehemently just after Obama signed it into law. So, yeah.
She is also quite Ron Paul friendly.
Oh yeah, she
Yes,
said
she is,
duckweed on there a couple times.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. But what was I going to say now? Yeah. So sometimes Alex Jones will talk about things that are true. Patriot Act, NDAA. What else is? I can't think of anything right offhand. Yeah, SOPA, PIPA. Yeah, but other
Net neutrality.
Yeah. But then, within that is all sandwiched into this deluge of the utter crap.
Well, they say in order to, all good lies have are 90% truth. That's what conspiracy theories rely on. They mask their lies in a whole flood of truth. And it's really difficult picking it apart, and that's where you have to know how to vet your sources. Like I said with Snopes, if you know that they are biased in one way or another, you can take them with a grain of salt. But knowing what good primary sources are is very, very important. People say, well, I heard this rumor about someone having said something to so and so about something, and you're like, okay, give me the primary source. Give me the actual quote. Tell me exactly what was said. I actually catch my brother on this all the time on Facebook, where he's like, he said something about Paul Ryan said something, and he actually misquoted him in reposting this link to a video. And I watched the video, and I'm like, I didn't hear that quote. He said where Paul Ryan. My brother claimed that Paul Ryan said that rape is just another method of conception, in quotes. And what Paul Ryan actually said was, it doesn't matter the method of conception. A conceived baby is still a human being. He's like, it doesn't matter how sperm meets egg, or the circumstances that cause that to happen. He believes that that the fetus is a living human being, or the zygote or whatever. So he wasn't specifically saying that rape is just another method of conception.
Right. He wasn't saying that rape is okay. Right. Yeah. And now I'm from choice, but I still understand what he is saying. He considers, at the moment of conception, he considers it a human being.
Exactly. So that's the rub right there. That therein lies the problem. It's like he's not saying that rape is okay and that rape is just another way to have more God-fearing Christians come into this world. And no, that he's not saying that. But my brother strawmanned him because my brother hates the Republicans and hates the GOP and hates Obama too. So he's voting for Gary Johnson. It's hilarious. But he's like, this is the weirdest thing. He says,
some libertarians aren't critical thinkers, just like there are atheists who are not critical thinkers.
Well, let me put it this way. He is a Wiccan shaman, life coach that works a minimum wage job in a call center. And like, you're a life coach? Why don't you try living your own life well first before you tell other people how to live their lives? But he is a naturalist, naturist, paleo diet. He's kind of one of those tree-hugging hippie types, and
kinda?
Grew up Mormon.
Just kinda?
There's a song that started from a pagan podcast called Theo's Shadow, and it goes like, I'm a Wiccan Druid shaman. It's really funny. It makes fun of those people.
Yeah. Well, speaking of songs, there's a song from the 70s called Sunshine, Or it's like, sunshine go away today, I don't feel much like dancing, blah, blah, blah. You know, some man's gone, he's trying to run my life, he don't know what he's asking. And the chorus goes, well, how much does it cost? I'll buy it. The time is all we've lost, I'll try it. Well, he can't even run his own life. I'll be damned if he'll run mine. I love that song because it's so funny. My brother is so much like that, where he's like, I know what's right for everyone else around me. And I'm like, okay, prove it by living your own life that way and being successful. Until then, shut the fuck up. So I say it a lot. I tell people to shut up because they talk out their asses a lot. They don't talk about stuff they know. And I wouldn't pretend to know about crocheting. I'm not going to tell everyone how to crochet. So anyway, no.
All right, guys. We are coming to the end of the show. Since we have 4 liberty-loving people in here, which way are you leaning? Not which way you're going to vote, just which way are you leaning right now? Jared?
I have to vote for Romney.
The pressure is still too strong. You got to go for Romney?
Yeah.
Raise Village.
I'm not going to I'm not going to vote for a Republican because my state's going red anyway, so we're not going to elect Obama. So I don't even have to make the choice, really.
Are you even going to vote?
Probably.
Okay.
Just to make a statement. Might I write in Ron Paul? Maybe.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Dax?
Gary Johnson, fuck the Republican Party, and I hope they learn something from it. If they don't, oh well, Democrat next election too.
And I'm echoing that sentiment. I've seen just too much corruption, and I'd like to not believe that Ron Paul had any part of it, but it's hard to believe that a guy that has been as smart and politically savvy as him, and stayed elected for 30 years to Congress, doesn't know what's happening, from within his own campaign. So I also like some of Gary Johnson's social issues, so I'm leaning towards him, as for me being even better than Paul as far as his platform. So
for the record, I actually do like both Ron Paul a lot and Gary Johnson pretty much, almost totally about everything they believe. I just, I'm going to vote for who I want to win, not for who I want to make a statement about.
I understand. You got those local issues there.
Yeah, all politics are local.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to see more Goldwater Republicans. Not only stealth libertarians like Rand Paul, but more like Goldwater Republicans. People who will stand up to the religious right and clean out that party.
Yeah, well, we also happen to Goldwater.
All right, well, good night, everyone.
Good night.